Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're going to be taking a first look at Total Victory World Conflict 1939 to 1945, made by Kraken Studios, the developer behind WarPlan, WarPlan Pacific, and a game I have not played called Kingdom, Dungeon, and Hero, a strategy game with RPG elements. I believe this is a very small studio. It looks like it's primarily led by Alvaro Sosa. That's the name right here. The previous games, WarPlan and WarPlan Pacific, had been published by Slytherin. This appears to be self-published, and this game is coming soon, but the reason we're covering it today is there is a demo that is going to be launching later this week with a new campaign, or a new scenario for Barbarossa. This is a turn-based war game. I believe the main game will kind of have like strategic command, grand strategy, like full-blown war mechanics. The WarPlan games certainly did, but the scenario we're going to be playing today, which I believe will be part of the demo launching later this week, is just for the Barbarossa scenario. So we're going to take a look at that. Obviously the game has an editor. I don't know if content is for like mods. They have YouTube tutorials, or they will, and then there's kind of like a games wiki for the rules, or a PDF, whatnot. But we're going to go ahead and jump in here. The only scenario that I can see here right now as part of this demo is Blitzkrieg East, which is a scenario looking at sort of June 22nd, the start of Operation Barbarossa, up until sort of the fall rains. It goes to September 28th. Doesn't get you all the way to the battle for Moscow, but it gets you kind of that decisive period where realistically, if Germany was going to win in Barbarossa, they probably had to win now. The rain shuts things down, then the winter comes real soon after that, and while there is sort of a battle around Moscow, or an attempt to push there, this was sort of the Germans' best chance, if they even had one, of victory here. So you can see here, June 22nd, 1941, the silence of the Eastern Front was shattered by the largest military invasion in human history. Under the banner of the Third Reich, over 3 million Axis troops surged across the Soviet border, launching a massive assault aimed at the total collapse of the USSR before the onset of winter. This was a brutal war of annihilation that spanned a gargantuan front from the Baltic to the Black Sea as the Wehrmacht's panzer divisions raced toward Moscow. They ignited a titanic struggle of ideological extremes. When titans clashed? Industrial might and desperate survival that would ultimately dictate the fate of the Second World War. Play as Germany and push as hard as you can before the October rains. Total objectives 20. German victory control 13 objectives. The Russians have to control 9. So we'll go ahead and jump in here. Really, this demo scenario is only intended to be played from the side of the Germans. Doesn't even have saving enabled right now, so just keep that in mind. Apparently there are demo tutorial videos, but we're not going to look at that. We're just going to go ahead and jump in and get our first look at this game. Now, I will say, again, this isn't a grand war scenario, so a lot of things like R&D or politics are maybe less relevant for this scenario, but the mechanics exist. So I want to kind of show you a little bit of that. This is the turn summary. We're just getting started. So, I mean, nothing. This is just what you start at. Limited partisan strength in Poland, high oil reserves, manpower pools very high, 141 industry points produced, 15 oil used for upkeep. So if we go up here, we can see a whole bunch of bars on the top. We can use the sort of arrow keys to move around on the map. Interestingly enough, the WASD keys don't work. It's just the arrow keys. You can also click and drag around to move around the map, zoom in or out with your mouse wheel, so kind of standard stuff there. If we take a look at the top left here, we've got Germany, which I guess it just brings us to the capital if we click on it. We've got some traits here, 2,000 out of 2,000 rail points, 300 out of 300 air points. No naval transport, no landing craft for this particular scenario. There's a production screen. There's a lot of information here. You can see here you can produce military units, you can produce headquarters, you can produce infantry divisions. They take a certain amount of turns, right? 5 turns, build infantry. They cost 150 manpower, 54 steel, 41 armaments. I don't actually think, based on that turn scenario comment, I even have enough resources in stockpile. You can also do air units, you can do naval units, you can build the Graf Zeppelin apparently. Although I assume this parentheses represents how many units you actually can build for a given scenario. I think, anyway. Because, like, if I do this, it says 10 for infantry. It says 0 for headquarters. So I don't... What happens if I hit this? Oh, it does let me do it. Okay. Interestingly. Oh, this is probably the number that are being built. Yeah, this is the number that is currently in queue. So you can see the queue here, the deployment queue. We've got the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th infantry divisions will be ready tomorrow, or the next turn. 10th, 13th, and 14th in 2 turns, 18th, 19th, and 20th in 3 turns, and then apparently also the 27th infantry division in 2 turns. I'm not sure why that one's at the bottom. You can see manpower here is very high. It actually has a number there associated with the 12,496. Oil upkeep is 15. Experience percentages, specialty points, production. You've got oil industry. So we do have some industry points we can spend. I don't know. It looks like, yeah, we do have steel. So we've got 193 or 160 steel, 145 vehicles, and 145 aircraft. I think that's how you read that. Dockyards, shipyards, remaining factories that can be retooled for different purposes, strategic move points, all of this kind of stuff here. A lot of information on this screen, some of which you might use, a lot of it which you won't in this particular scenario. You've got Bulgaria as well as one of your allies here. Obviously, they have their own industrial capabilities. We've got Finland also, Hungary, Romania, and Italy, all with very different, unit availabilities and percentages. Actually, the only country that has units that are already paid for is Italy, with 3 divisions coming next turn. Additionally, there's an operations tab here, which allows you to rework encryption. These are kind of just like, I guess, temporary traits. Like I could do an artillery barrage here if I had enough points, although I don't think I actually have enough action points to do that. Although I don't know where it's not clearly laid out. Like, again, this is probably like, hey, do the tutorial, read the manual. I actually have glanced through the manual, but in any event, you've also got an R&D screen here. I would think a 20, something that only lasts to September, R&D is not going to be a big part of our game, but it definitely will be in the final version of the game. So you can see you research different weapons, different levels, guns as well, tanks as well, fighters, bombers, all sorts of stuff, logistics, amphibious. So there's a lot of depth or stuff in any event to sort of this, which would, lend its support to a war level scenario as opposed to a battle scenario. Although obviously you can do battle scenarios. You've got a politics screen here. Everybody in this particular scenario is either already our ally or part of the enemy. So we're not going to be declaring war on anyone or forcing a negotiated surrender, at least not yet, in terms of what we're looking at here. I wonder if the Poland partisans are actually in Soviet Russia. Not really sure, but you can see here there's a partisan percentage level. Reports, we'll look at this more later once the actual scenario starts or once we start doing stuff, but you got a lot of different information about units. You got stuff about casualties, victory points. I don't know what goes in notes. Battles will track all of the individual battles. Commanders, actually, it's kind of cool. It tracks like all your different commanders, and some of them are assigned to headquarters or can be. Some of them are removed from headquarters, but a lot of these guys, like if we go to the hex that this guy's at or go to the hex that this guy's at, you can actually see where these different officers are assigned. So that's kind of neat. And then deployment, when we get new units, we'll have to deploy them. We don't have any new units to deploy right now. We also have the option to use ground support on or off. I'll leave that on. Control, you can see here the gray overlay is our controlled territory. I don't know, whatever this other color is, greenish, is the Soviets. But if you don't do that, it's just like a straight uniform map. The only coloring is for terrain. I find the control tab very useful. You can turn land units on or off. You can turn air units on or off, naval units on or off. I don't think there's really any naval units in this particular scenario right now. Weather on or off. I assume it's good weather because it's summer. Production and convoys. So you can see here, there's convoys that exist on the map. Probably matters more in bigger scenarios, but I suppose if we take different cities or whatnot, that might cut off convoys to the Soviets or things like that. Victory locations, we've got the different locations. Warsaw is a victory location for the Germans. Berlin, obviously, I don't think we have to worry about losing Berlin, but then the Soviets have them at Kiev. Couple down here sort of in Ukraine. Surprisingly, Sevastopol isn't one. You've got Kursk, you've got Smolensk, Rizhev, Moscow, and then Leningrad and Tallinn around here. So those are the objectives we need to try and take. And you can turn hexes on or off, but this is a hex-based turn-based game, so worth keeping in mind. All right, so that is all of the peripherals. It only took us about 10 minutes to get through that. Yeah. Let's go ahead and take a look at the units here. So you can see units across the map here, infantry units here, those corps, motorized corps here, or panzer corps, and then you've got tank units. They're both panzer corps, I guess, but this one down here is a motorized division, which I guess is an infantry unit with motorization, and then tanks. This one up here is it does have a panzer division assigned, and a motorized, and a regular infantry assigned to this corps as well. I think you can build like your own corps too when you deploy units. You can deploy them as like corps or individual divisions or things like that. Because there are some, like this security division, obviously it's just one division as opposed to up here, this is 3 infantry divisions. You can see the strength or the sort of, I need to look back at the menu, but manual, but this is effectively like the combat power of a unit, and if this number on the left side of the counter goes to 0, they get destroyed. If they're below 6, they can shatter and then reform like 6 turns later or something like that. And then the number on the right is the movement points that they have available. So if you click a unit, you can see like, oh, this will take 6 movement points, so that'll use all of theirs. I believe, I've played around with this a little bit, I believe you have to have at least 1 movement point in order to fight. But in any event, so that's the situation there. You can look down across the map and you can see this covers the whole front of Barbarossa. So why don't we start our actual fighting here? Now, one thing to consider is when you do attack, your air units, if they're, if they're around here, will support your attacks to a point. But you can also do individual, like, do you want to soften them up with a air-specific attack? Do you want to go ahead and attack an enemy airfield to limit the enemy air power's ability to interdict your attack? My answer to that is yes, at least to a point here. So you can see I've got 300 sort of combat power, if you will, and then the enemy is 297, so if I go ahead and right-click here, we go ahead and bomb them, they lose 60, we lose much less than that. And then actually, if we go to the battle screen here, we can see this airstrike. So the attackers Germany, the defenders the Soviet Union, attacking strength 300, defending strength 300. It said 400, I thought, but maybe I misread that. Interceptor strength, so the enemy intercepted with 156. Interception losses, escorts and bombers, so we lost 11 bombers and escorts, the enemy lost 26 interceptors. And then we destroyed 6 enemy planes on the ground. 31 planes lost total. Well, that math should be 32 unless one was patched up or something. I don't know if this is influenced by fog of war or not either, but you can see that attack occurred and was reasonably successful. You can see the airfield attack. I could go ahead and I think attack him again. Do I want to do that though? Is a different question. This is actually my strongest air unit around here, so maybe I do want to try and attack this other, or did I use all my points up and I can't do that again? I guess I used up all my points and I can't do that again. So we'll shift these guys to land attack, and I'm hoping they've got enough points to still support our ground offensive here. But let's go ahead and do one more attack. Is anybody else strong enough to do anything? I mean, they're all 200, they're all strong, but the enemy's got 300 here almost. These are just fighter units, right? So what happens if we use fighter units against these guys? So if I go to that actual battle screen here, second attack, 200 versus 300, they intercept with 143. We lose 22 escorts and bombers. They lose 57 interceptors and 3 lost on the ground. Oh, these must be friendly planes destroyed. Okay. That's why it says losses, planes destroyed. So if this is true and the enemy lost 57 and we lost 22, we definitely got out ahead. You can see those fighters who lost 25, they lost over 50 in terms of combat power. So that's good, I guess, if we can, substantially hinder their ability to... Can I attack them again? No. I swear I was able to attack him twice before, which is why I'm a little confused. I'm switching most of these units back to ground attack as well, because I think if they have any movement points left, they can also support the attack on the enemy here. So we actually do have some units that are just fighters, like up here. Let's go ahead and just kind of keep... I want to kind of try and keep hitting the enemy air bases as much as I can. Probably just with the fighters, and then leave the fighter bomber groups to supporting the ground invasion, if that makes sense. Ooh, this one's got 400. That's a really strong unit. I might want them to... And this enemy has 397, so let's go ahead and attack the enemy airfield here. So if we go ahead and we look up at the battles, and I'm not going to do this for every fight here. We lose 31, the enemy lose 39, I guess. So not quite as lopsided as I would have liked. Can I fly again? I swear, maybe it's distance-based? Yeah, I can, okay. So we hit him again with a second raid, and that one we didn't do any better. So I'm hoping some of those units I used previously will be able to attack again because maybe the enemy ground units are closer, so the air support. But I'm also not using all of my air power to try and suppress the enemy air power either. So these are, what, Bulgarian aircraft? Can they even reach the front from back here? They can, but they can't reach the enemy air bases. Okay. So I don't know. Let's see. It looks like, I think we experienced up. So the enemy lost more than us. We lost 10. They lost 16. As we hit those border troops. Okay. Again, I don't want to use too much of my air power on some of these attacks. There's also an enemy air unit that we detected here that we haven't actually identified what their strength is. So to that extent, maybe we hit them too. We didn't actually find out what their strength was in the attack, so it wasn't like a recon. But we only lost 8 planes and they lost 42, so that's a pretty good result, I'd say. So if we actually go to the reports section here, we go to losses now, we can see the enemy's lost 356 aircraft, our 134. Now that doesn't seem as lopsided as you would think from a Barbarossa campaign, but just wait, because as these operations commence on the ground, those losses will change. All right, now what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and try and break through these border units. So there's the Soviet 10th Rifle Corps and the 11th Rifle Corps. We'll just move north to south along the border. If you want to click a unit and then highlight over it, you can go ahead and do that. And you can see this unit would get a 2-to-1 advantage on the attack. The left side is the sort of strength that we have. The right side is the enemy. So we've got a 2-to-1 advantage if we have this, what is this? This 18th Army, I guess. Is that what this is? Or the 1st Corps of the 18th Army attack them. But I can do better than that. I can actually go ahead and hover over this, and if you hit the select key, it'll actually add the adjacent units to support the assault. Now, it didn't change the odds, but you can see this plus symbol means this neighboring corps is in on the attack. What we're going to actually do, however, is we're going to go ahead and move up one of our motorized corps, the Totenkopf motorized division up here. It'll actually stack with these guys, and then we can go ahead and have it assist in the assault as well, and we'll get 3-to-1 odds. Go ahead and do that. You can see the air units, some of them leveled up and things like that because they were involved in the assault. And if we go down here and we take a look at the losses, or sorry, I should go to the battle section. Go to the battle section here, you can see the casualties that unfolded. So you can see the attacking strength, the attacking air support, defending support, the enemy air, or our air losses, 10 for the attacker, that's us, 31 for the defender, land losses, 42 for the attacker, 108 for the defender. It does break out casualties as well. Based on unit types, you've got armored and mechanized, and then you've got infantry, so 118 to 42. No armor casualties in that initial attack. However, that's not all we can do, right? Like, we attacked them once. You can see here our strength went down. Although what I will say is, like, the combat power must be related to fatigue and other things like that, because our strength number is here. Like, this is the total strength of the unit, but that doesn't necessarily always correlate, it doesn't seem, to the actual like combat number here. So I'm assuming there's like things like fatigue. Anyway, we got a better odd now that we can attack a second time, 4-to-1. We'll go ahead and do that. And the enemy's driven back. They retreat here. You can see a little icon says they retreated. We lost about 16 more strength out of this core, but you can see now they're down to 38 instead of 40, 40, which is in theory, I guess, what they could be at. So we drove them back. Now, I'm not going to pursue them yet with this core because I'm actually going to have this Panzer Division support the assault on their adjacent unit. Or maybe we'll hold off on that, actually. Let's go ahead and see about moving these guys up this way. They'll get a 3-to-1, drive the enemy back further, kind of keep pursuing that enemy infantry unit. And then that enemy unit here, I think, just got destroyed. So shattered units regroup. Destroyed units do not. And so we managed to just drive them all the way back. We also drove this core back up here. So a good result for us there. Can this guy go here? No. Interesting. So he can drive up this road toward Preclu, this mechanized unit. But really, that's not, like, our objective should be Tallinn, which is up here, and then also, like, to drive on Moscow. So we don't get too distracted by driving north, but maybe a little bit. All right. There's a maximum size that you can stack in a section as well. All right. So I'm just trying to, like, think through what makes the most sense. All right. I'm going to move this other mechanized unit north, just to try and make sure that our flank is secure, so I'll have all these units supporting its attack. So we shattered that unit, we didn't destroy it. And you can see there we've now destroyed both those border units, blocking our advance on Liepāja, which eventually will mean the assault on Riga. So let's go ahead and assault this unit as well. We have 4-1. Why would that be a 6? I'd be inclined to push forward with the infantry just slightly. Alright, so that should be a good result there. We shattered that unit on impact. Alright. Destroyed that other enemy unit. Shattered that enemy unit. You can see attacking does use a movement point. There we go. Do I want to do that? All right. Okay, so we drove these guys back. We took Grodno here, drove the enemy air unit, which I think the air unit was just, like, destroyed when we overran it. I think. If I go ahead and I take a look at the battle screen here, I think it's this one. No. Here. It doesn't say they lost anything when we took, but we did take the base. I mean, they're gone in any event, so I'm not sure where they retreated to if they're still around. This mechanized core is a little exposed out here by itself. I'm thinking maybe we pull it back to Grodno directly. Okay. I don't know, like, I'm not experienced enough at this game yet to know what the best avenue of advance is. Alright, did we shatter? We shattered them. So the shattered units can rally. Can I not attack these guys? Interesting. Okay, I am going to move some of these headquarters units forward as well. I don't know exactly the rules around supply in terms of how, you know, permissive the game is of you advancing beyond, but I would think as we're pushing out of the starting blocks, we would want to make sure that we're not too far from headquarters to maintain supply. Okay. Alright, so we've taken Grodno. The enemy may take it back. They've got a group of troops here. I'll pull the mechanized unit back just so it's in better contact with the troops behind it. So we're all kind of like grouped up here. We're not too out ahead of our own skis. I assume these security divisions are, you know, worthwhile moving forward as well. All right, so we're kind of through up near Kaunas, driving toward Vilnius, up toward Riga. A good initial push. I believe each turn is 2 weeks. Okay. There we go. There must be like a sort of breakthrough mechanic as well, because it looks like this ground unit can actually attack here again. I don't want to do that though. I want to try and get better than 2-to-1 odds on all my attacks. Also, attacking across the river does have penalties, but at least in this case, these troops are coming, I think, in from behind. Well, they weren't quite. They were still on a river, but now they're from behind. So we get 4-to-1 there, 5-to-1 here. Enemy units surrendered. Good news there. So like crossing bridges and things like that, beneficial for trying to break through. Three to one on an enemy armor unit. I'll take that. You can see we are losing quite a bit of strength in these initial border battles. We are breaking through, but it's not, you know, free of, you know, losses. You don't want to like, and because of that, you don't necessarily just want to like pursue the enemy for the sake of pursuing them. Okay. Alright, we shattered that unit, but I don't want to get the mechanized troops out too far ahead. Alright. So we took Lvov? Love? Alright. don't know if I need to leave some of those garrison troops-ish. Back. We've cut off these Soviet troops here in this town, west of Stanislav, and now we're down like to the Romanian front. I've used most of my movement points up elsewhere. I don't think I can keep bombing these guys. We do have this mechanized unit as well. So I could actually drive... I don't really want to... I would rather they go north toward Minsk. I don't have a good path forward here, though. I don't want to drive them into the swamp. I drive along this railway track and approach Minsk from the south. Or we can get them directly into battle and move south toward Rovo and support the drive on Kiev. I can get at least one attack in that way, but I think we'll avoid that. We'll just drive them up here to this crossroads and have them stand ready for the next turn. Okay. All right. So moving some troops around to support this eventual offensive. We've got 10 movement points here, so... Take Shatisk, destroy that enemy unit. Alright. I don't want to waste my mechanized unit trying to attack an enemy armor formation by itself. That 32nd Tank Corps looks... Well, both that and the 8th look pretty strong. Alright, we'll advance here. I think we destroyed that guy. Yep. So our German corps here helped the Romanians near Oniska drive back multiple enemy units. Okay, we'll move south here. Move my cavalry up toward Rezhna. Drive them across the Dniester. There's an armored division on the other side of that river. Alright. Shattered that enemy. Took out that air unit. I'm assuming you don't have to worry about partisans inside their own home countries. We'll leave the fortress troops there. We'll leave the garrison troops in Yugoslavia, because you never know what might happen there. These border brigades aren't going to be very effective units, but they could be something I could, like, garrison maybe with. Okay. Static infantry divisions. Does it make sense to try and pull them forward? Probably not, although I'm Guessing I don't need infantry divisions in Germany right now. So there you go. The initial assault is well underway. I don't know if I should move these air units or headquarters units forward on turn 1. I think I'm inclined to hold them steady until the next turn. Most of the air units should still be in range of the enemy. Maybe some of these further back ones we'd advance a little bit. Not dramatically, but just get them a little closer to the front. Just by a few hexes even. I can still hit all these guys from here, so they're still within range for the most part. The real question is like some of these guys back in the well, even these guys have pretty decent range. Can we get to Odessa? They can. So to that extent, I guess I'll leave those guys in place. All right, then. So let's end the turn. Let's check button up here. Actually, first things first, let's take a look at the losses. So, through the first turn, the enemy's lost over 3,500, and I don't think this directly equates to individuals, but 3,557 infantry. We've lost 785, so 5-1 advantage for us there. About 4-1 advantage, a little worse than 4-1 in terms of armor and mechanized forces. Air power is better than 5-1. You can see, well, almost, just about 5-1. 987 to 193. So you can see those air units continue to fight, even, you know, in support of the ground units. And so let's go ahead and end the turn. We'll see what the Russians do on their end. If they attack us anywhere, they will attack you if you give them an opportunity. But I think for the most part, their units that are still adjacent to us are probably more inclined to fall back, given the drubbing that we gave them. It doesn't look like we left any like vulnerable areas for them to assault, so that's good. So there you go. First things first, before I forget about it, let's go ahead and deploy our 3 infantry divisions. I think I have to deploy them back in Germany still, so we'll deploy the second. Can we just deploy them as 1 unit? Or maybe we just stack them as like 1 corps, because they're not super strong individually, but together that's a very strong unit. So we kind of formed, you know, the 2nd Infantry Division here is kind of a core. So if I do this, am I replacing... All 3 of these are... So I can change priority, but they don't have a general. Some of these generals aren't available yet. Karl von Stubel. I guess I don't have anyone who's available. Huh. Okay. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just don't know. Well, it's saying replace general. I don't necessarily want to replace anyone, but in any event. All right, one thing I didn't do last turn is I didn't move on the Finland front, and that was deliberate. My thought was if I assault the enemy directly from the west and leave Finland unassaulty, then the enemy might pull its troops off the Finnish border to an extent and give us an easier time of trying to advance up that way. It does look like that's what they did. So we're advancing on Murmansk in the north. Is Murmansk considered a victory? It's not. Okay. Interesting. All right. So we will advance in 1 column here toward the eastern bank of Lake Lagoda And then Viborg, the border town, has fallen to us already. So we're advancing on Leningrad here. We're going to get all the way up to right next to it if we want. I don't know how much punishment the Russians will give me if I do that, so we'll actually just pull adjacent. We'll leave some points there. We'll also pull some of these divisions on the coast away. I don't think the Soviets are going to land in Helsinki. I don't think they have the sea lift to do that. So we're advancing all across the front in Finland. Scale, 64 kilometers per hex. 2 move points. Okay. Oh, so the scale changes on a few spots on the map. All right. All right. Meanwhile, we're not going to bomb airfields this turn. We're just going to let our air units support the ground assaults. Let's move this mechanized force up toward Lepazha. No, try and attack by yourself. Didn't succeed. Damn. So we did force an enemy unit to surrender here on one of these coastal areas. So we'll try and advance toward Riga now. So we took one of these. This, I believe, is a supply port. Alright, so we've taken Vilnius. We've kind of broken through up here in the north. So good assault there. I don't want to get, again, too overextended, because the enemy could certainly sort of bounce back on me. But we'll move this armored unit north. It will eventually support the assault on Riga. These guys are going to push toward Minsk to support the flank of the troops at Vilnius. Okay. Those are good odds. We shattered that enemy unit. Okay. Destroyed that enemy mechanized formation. Okay. Looks like a leader was injured here, but we can drive all the way to Minsk, although it will use all of our points up. That enemy unit surrendered, and then the armor will push forward to Minsk. Move the mechanized forces up with them as well, so they're not too exposed out there all by themselves. It is now July 6th, by the way. So we've totally broken through here in the north. We're definitely going to need to move some of our air units forward as well. Is there... So I can do strategic rail movement, which will move them forward more quickly, I guess, and that's where you kind of get these rail points. But you're more limited in what you can move them to. Still, there's a little bit more. It does consume almost half of our points. I don't know that I want to do that quite yet. So this is where the advance starts to get a little dicey, because units definitely start to get spread out here. But we've definitely got sort of a spearhead moving toward Minsk. I don't know if it was smart to move those guys like that. They're way up there by themselves, the 7th Panzer. Okay. So we got bogged down here a little bit. Moving through the Pripyat marshes here. I'll move this other armored unit all the way up there. At least we've got adjacent armored units. This 36 Rifle Corps and 31st Rifle Corps are proving to be a bit of an obstacle. This cavalry unit here can't move, and it's too big and is blocking, so they may get counterattacked and destroyed next turn. Let's actually just move the armor back. We took Rovno. I'm moving infantry force forward here to hold it. Some armored force. Alright, hopefully we destroyed that guy. Well, we got it to surrender, same difference. So Tarnopol is ours. Alright. So we're advancing. There's definitely the historical Kiev pocket, which looks like it's forming in the army group center. Leader injured, the enemy shattered. Okay. Secure the flank at Rovno with this Bulgarian mobile corps. Or they, yeah, that's Bulgarian. Okay. So that about does that. Okay. Odessa might attack this 4th Infantry Division that's kind of out ahead of itself on its own. We'll see. Across the Dniester. Drive that enemy core back. I don't want to get out too far ahead of myself. Okay. All right, so a little bit less of a battle-filled turn, but definitely very, you know, meaningful. This enemy force here in front of Kiev could definitely counterattack the Romanians advancing. We do have some German units also coming down from the north, but that's a bit of a concern. We probably want to funnel south toward Kiev with some of these troops in around here to avoid the Pripyat marshes, at least to an extent. I assume we would benefit from moving some of these headquarters forward to aid with supply, now that we're getting out kind of way ahead of ourselves. Also, you can see as I move this, more units get brought under that yellow triangle, which I assume is like who's under your command type of a deal. Okay. I can't move the new units there. I probably should also strategically move some of these air units closer to the front. Apparently moving air units via rail is a thing, which like historically was, but I do wonder. All right, these guys are all still in range. They definitely are. All right, we definitely need to move air units forward to at least some of them to hit Minsk. Let's move some of these guys up toward Gordo. I guess if they probably fought, they can't move, so that unit must not have fought, or at least they can't move via rail. So yeah, I definitely need to move some of these headquarters units forward. A lot of these guys are not even in supply. Okay. All right. Am I out of... Oh, no, out of rail. Okay. I think that's about it for turn 2. We've been going for almost an hour, though. Let's go ahead and end this turn. See if the Soviet... They do counterattack that division in front of Odessa, like I thought. Causes the division to retreat. So that was the most obvious enemy counterattack. Okay. I didn't deploy the Italian units. I forgot about that. Where do they deploy anyway? They gotta go all the way back there? Not very powerful. But in any event, so the Soviets did pull some troops back. We are at the doorstep of Minsk. Minsk falls. We'll want to clear our flank to the north as well. So the enemy retreats north there. This is where the armored units start getting out way out ahead of everybody else, and there's Smolensk, by the way. So we're getting close to Smolensk, which is an objective, but... Alright, I recorded this in one sitting, guys. I'm about halfway through that recording, and I'm not going to throw just a raw 2-hour video up. So we're going to pull this out, wrap this episode up, and we will resume next time our look at the Total Victory, the upcoming World War II turn-based war game. We're way behind. I honestly forgot the Germans took Minsk in the first week of the campaign, so we're like 3 weeks behind. I'm probably not doing enough encirclement. Actually, later in the next episode, you get to see a bit of like why encirclement can be really good, but also if you push too hard for it, can be really risky. So we'll leave that for the next episode. I hope you guys are enjoying this look at the upcoming game. The demo comes out at some point this week, I believe. But yeah, that's going to do it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.